library. Thank you, Marilyn, which is great for members of the library or teachers. For $3, you can fill an entire bag with books. And there's all kinds of books there. And for non-members, it's $5 a bag. So today, when I hosted one of the groups, I was saying, think everything that's coming up: Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduation. We all decided that we don't give gifts over Passover, but all the other holidays and things that are coming up, they are wonderful gifts, and they're great gifts for yourself too. Or buy a bag and take them to one of the little lending libraries. So don't forget, that's 1 to 3. Oh, and Susan told me today that we have cake. So if for no other reason, come and have cake. And it is kosher made, in case you keep kosher. So, I mean, it's going to cover everything. And just the word cake should get everybody there. Also, on the 15th of March, we have our beloved Batya Cohen, who is our art historian that we listen to on Zoom. She's going to be actually at the library doing a program. She's written a book about, I believe it's somebody in her family's history about through the war and things like that. And she's going to be autographing, selling them, and talking about her book. So you guys make note of that. That's also on Sunday on the 15th. So, and without further ado, let's turn the program over to Shelly. Shelly, take it away and tell us all about this interesting kind of film noirish interesting movie.
Thank you, Jackie. Yes, if you all notice, the theme for this month is I call it a little noir music, from classic to screwball. Well, we start off with the classic, and it is one of my favorites and a legendary classic. And when I explain it, hopefully you'll know why. It's from 1967. I have to tell you about the man behind it. His name was Jean-Pierre Melville, and he was born Jean-Pierre Grumbach in France, but renamed himself after the American novelist, after Herman Melville. He was a hero of the French resistance, and after the war, he started his own studio and made independent films on small budgets. He essentially pointed the way for the French New Wave. He said, "I'm incapable of doing anything but a rough draft," he once said. But in fact, Le Samouri is as finished and polished as any film can be. Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samouri stands as the definitive blueprint for what they call the modern cool in cinema. A masterpiece in minimalist precision that serves as a cornerstone of the crime genre. By stripping American noir, the old Humphrey Bogart and the 1950s, the very early 1950s film noir tradition, down to its skeletal remains and reassembling it with French existentialism, Melville created more than a film. He established what he called the foundational aesthetic, where silence is the language and ritual is a religion. It is a work where the tilt of a fedora or the monochromatic chill of a Parisian street or the jangle of keys can carry the weight of, someone once said of him, of a Shakespearean monologue, marrying the grit of the gangster underworld with a discipline that fundamentally altered the visual and narrative architecture of world cinema. As you've seen, Le Samouri is the story of a hitman, Jef Costello, who, when he tries to collect, becomes the subject of a hit on him. At the same time, the relentless commissioner of police is on his tail out to catch him. The film stars Alain Delon, who by this time was Europe's most prominent sex symbol, and had starred a number of what are now classic films. This was written especially for him. Derived from Melville's love of 1930s Hollywood crime movies, is certainly the template for modern film, noir, what we might call neo-noir, combining his stylish direction and intelligent script, first-rate performances, and an aesthetically spare and thick atmosphere to create one of the most absorbing thrillers to ever reach the screen. It is all about atmosphere. All the main elements of the film, the killer, the cops, the underworld, the women, especially the code of the hitman, are as familiar as the movies themselves. with a distinctly French accent that would set the stage for Hollywood films to come. From the very beginning, with an incredible sense of style, Melville demonstrates complete control over his material, involving us in the spell of Le Samouri, which is the few short strokes, through a dark, cold light in a dingy room with the paint peeling. We can barely make out. We don't even realize, Jef, that he's lying there in the bed. The hitman is there, and we don't know until he starts to exhale the smoke. You're staring, and you don't know what you're staring at, and all of a sudden the smoke is rising. And we read the quote, "There is no solitude greater than a samurai, unless perhaps it is that of a tiger in the jungle." It's attributed to the book of Bushido, which, by the way, is fictional. He made it up. It's a creation of his. But the quote and the pose of Costello seems meant to suggest a man who operates according to a rigid code, and throughout he seems only loyal to himself. And of course, there is the bird in a cage, a gray, shabby bird with an annoying chirp. Why is it even there? Why we can owe it to a symbolic gesture of existential solitude, entrapment of being caught in a cage. But yet, later in the story, it does simply serve a particular purpose when Jef returns to see the feathers at the bottom of the cage and realizes someone has been there, and all the police will record are its chirps. And his room is devoid of many details. Just his trench coat, his fedora, his cigarettes, and his bottles of Evian mineral water. And despite his surroundings, his clothes seem immaculate. You have to love the way he wears his coat, and especially his hat, his hand skimming over the brim. Every time he dons it, it's a trademark. It's a trademark. And all of the first 10 or so minutes are done with not a word of dialogue at all. This truly is film as art. Delon is the embodiment of cool. Jef has no connection to society or any social order. He remains passive throughout the film, never cracks a smile or indicates any emotion. He performs every action perfectly, from the moment he steals a car with that great set of keys at the beginning to his interaction with the mechanic at the garage, and especially when he's tailed by the police in the subway, a sequence that has inspired several other later classics, namely The French Connection, if you remember the chase sequence. We see the police stationed on every platform, but Costello hops in and out of cars, switches platforms and trains as if toying with them until he finally breaks free. And we even have two femme fatales. The first serves as an alibi, and the second a witness to his deed, who eventually will prove his fatal downfall. And in contrast, there is the commissaire, who doggedly tries to implicate him. Yet from the lineup to the questioning, he seems stymied, finally devoting the whole police force to getting him. And it's all done through character, not action, to build suspense. In the scene where the payoff man returns to his apartment to apologize and hire him for another job, Jef just stares at him blankly. And the guy just says, "Nothing to say?" And Jeff's reply, "Not to a man with a gun on me." "Is that a principle?" the gunman asks. "A habit," and then gets the gun from him. We know after the scene he has another job to do, and as we watch him, he heads for the apartment of the man who hired him. And when he bursts in, we realize where he is. And finally, he does when he opens the white door to the pianist's apartment. Interrupted by Ray, he kills him. The final scene in the nightclub is the culmination of everything that has gone wrong for Jef. The cops are closing in. His employers have turned on him through no fault of his own, and his home and relationship have been violated. Note that the framing of the shots, if you notice, in the final nightclub scene are much closer to him than the first time he was there. He is also in love with the pianist, and eventually that love conflicts with his samurai code, and he decides to ultimately take the honorable route and commit what the Japanese call seppuku, suicide. His gun was a sword and empty. He literally did not have it in him to kill her. And we're left with an enigmatic ending. But the drumbeat on the cymbals says it all. End of story. In truth, Melville nevertheless filmed two different endings for the Samouri and did not decide which one to use until the editing process. In the first, which was part of the original script, Jef Costello dies with a smile on his face after having committed suicide by cop in order to prevent himself from killing Valerie, the beautiful pianist who becomes a target when she witnesses Jef leaving the scene of another murder. The smile suggests that Jeff's act of self-sacrifice, undertaken because he has fallen in love with her, allows the hitman to become truly human for the first time, though only at the moment of his death. The second version depicts Jef dying with the same expressionless countenance he has worn throughout the film. Despite performing a noble deed, Jef remains an inscrutable samurai to the bitter end. Melville opted for the latter. It is purported that he made his choice because in another recent film, Delon's character had died with a grin on his face, and he didn't want to repeat it in his film. Melville shows us how action is the enemy of suspense. Remember that. Action is the enemy of suspense. How action releases tension instead of building it. Action releases tension instead of building it. Maybe it is better to wait for a whole movie for something to finally happen than to sit through a film where things we don't really care about are constantly happening. He also demonstrates how dialogue can be unnecessary toward telling a story on film. By omitting dialogue, but layering with sound, especially the chirping of the bird, the jangling of keys, which has a music all its own, or the presence of diegetic music, the music that arises out of the scene that even the actors are hearing, played at the club, for instance, they fill a void and make us watch instead of just listen. They also provide tension. As I said, all the elements are evident in the genre, but it's the way Melville handles the material, draining the color from the screen and paring down the dialogue. There is nothing absolutely original in the Samurai except for the way Melville handles the material. It's the same old story. The hitman, the femme fatale, all the elements are there, but it's the way he mixes them up, paring it down and leaving things out. He disdained artificial action sequences and manufactured payoffs. He drains the color from his screen and the dialogue from his characters. At the end, there is a scene that cries out for a last dramatic, enigmatic statement, but Melville gives us banality and then silence. He has been able to keep constantly in mind his hero's chief business. Elaborate theories of psychoanalysis are usually brought to bear on this film. The idea that Jef begins the film whole, looking at the mirror. During the course of the narrative, he loses the self-sufficient image, cracking up as its fragments, split by mirrors, trapped behind bars, although the half banknotes he consciously plays with at the beginning might qualify this kind of feeling. Other comments on the film, less as a gangster film than a dramatization of particular philosophies, some see Jef as an example of existentialist man, a man who does not exist except through his acts. The film patiently records endless scenes of Jef walking, staring, preparing his jobs, healing his hand. His final ritual is a preparation for death. As existentialism suggests, friends, social purpose fall away, and one is left alone with one's fate. Or it's an expression of fatalistic Asian ethics. The film is called The Samurai for a reason, concerning solitude and the inevitability of death. Melville himself offered two possible interpretations. One he said was, think of it as a study in schizophrenia and as an allegory of a man pursued by destiny and the inspector and the arms of death, Valerie, the pianist. Delon was one of the few actors capable of capturing a menacing otherness while being seductive, and he is supported by a terrific cast in the film. Francois Perrier plays the superintendent as a canny policeman who will do whatever it takes to get his man. He can be charming or nasty as circumstances demand. And he was in a lot of French film at the time. Delon's real wife at that period in time, Natalie Delon, who plays Jeff's lover and alibi, is every bit as sexy as Catherine Deneuve in his film. And Kathy Rosier portrays Valerie as the perfect mix of the enigmatic and the alluring. She's one of the mysteries that Jeff must solve if he's going to outfit Fox the cops. While the film was a major success in France upon its release, it wasn't released in theaters in the States until 1972 and was dubbed in English and retitled The Godson to capitalize on the recent success of The Godfather. Critics hated the dubbed version and considered it disorienting and dreadful. Sure, you dubbed the film. That's the first mistake. Naming it The Godson was the second. The studio known as Jenner was Melville's private film studio and was destroyed by a fire on June 29th, 1967, whilst the Samouri was still in production. Melville, who termed the blaze suspicious, finished the shoot at another studio. He claimed that his competitors were trying to stop him from making films. They were jealous of his techniques. They didn't like his approach. He used to ride around Paris in a Cadillac with a cowboy hat, with a Stetson and sunglasses. He was a character unto himself, and he was a favorite of film students in the United States at that time when he was around, and he attracted a lot of other filmmakers from the States who copied him. If you've seen movies like Heat with Robert De Niro and Pacino, it's the same style as this film. Less talk, less action, more watching. What are they going to do next? And that's what this film is about. We know we just follow him. We follow him all the way. He's cool. What's he going to do next? I mean, the way he catches the guy, the way he ties him up in the corner before he leaves was hilarious watching him there. If he moved, he's dead. If he moved, he's dead. And the cops who plant the microphone, and then he figures out it's there for the bird to have a delight in. It's all planned specifically, and it's all shot that way. But this is the foundational film for everything that would come after it. Really, even Kubrick in his film, The Killing, uses some of what he saw. He was really into this kind of filmmaking. And if you look at Kubrick's early film, it carries the same kind of look as Melville's film. So I know, you sit there and you scratch your head and you say, what's happening next? Where is this going? Well, you just have to just accept the atmosphere. Look at him, watch him. I mean, the whole thing, the keys, the hat, the raincoat, everything in place. I mean, he is the prototypical hitman in this film. You have to, and in the end, he succumbs to a beautiful woman that he can't kill. He'd rather die than kill her. This is the ultimate samurai, the ultimate samurai. So now I'd like to open it up and listen to your thoughts on the film, or if there's something you want to deal with. Okay, Nancy, jump right in there. You got on mute, Nancy. There you go.
So is the concept of the samurai falling for a beautiful woman, does that follow through in future films? Is that a theme that we should be following if we're going to be watching these noir things? I mean, I adored this film, and I had no problem just saying, oh, he can come shoot me any old time he wants. He's gorgeous. But so is it the woman who is the downfall?
Yes. Well, I will tell you, Melville loved American films and he loved American gangster films. One of his favorites was Double Indemnity. And Double Indemnity is also a masterpiece in film noir. It is one of the bedrocks of American film noir. And in that, Barbara Stanwyck is the femme fatale. Fred McMurray falls head over heels for her, and she pulls him in like a spider into the web. And he winds up, fatally shot as a result. So, the question is, yes, it's always a guy that falls for a woman and then falls and then falls. And noirish heroes always fall.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Beautiful woman got him every time. All right.
absolutely. Well, there's always, usually, if you notice in film noir, there's a blonde and there's a brunette.
There's a
Okay, the
redhead though.
blonde, the blonde is usually the femme fatale. The brunette is usually the innocent woman. It's the woman who loves the guy, but he doesn't feel good enough to love her, and he falls for the blonde, who will manipulate him. It's always these are what I call, these are all the elements,
Hmm.
and he mixes them up. I mean, look at his girlfriend. She's a blonde, and Kathy Rosier, notwithstanding that she's black, she's the darker one, and he falls for her. He falls for her. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, the scenes in the club are wonderful. The scenes when he's coming in at the end, the way the bartender backs off, because he knows somebody's going to get it, and when he sits in the car, Melville cuts away just as he's looking at his gun, and we don't know, we have no idea what's going to happen next. Especially when they find the gun was empty. It's a great moment in the film. Great
Hmm.
moment in the film. Thank you, Nancy.
I loved it. Okay.
Thank you, Jackie.
We liked it too. We thought it was really interesting. I loved the opening scene. Absolutely loved it, because you're right. You have no idea really what you're looking at, and then all of a sudden you realize. I never did get the meaning of the water bottles, but I thought it was kind of cool that seemed to be a big play there, and I liked the bird. One of the scenes that I really liked, to be honest with you, was I liked the lineup. I was
Yeah,
surprised how they did the lineup, but then I liked how they all really did know it was him, but then nobody would really say that. So it was interesting. I thought it was a little bit long, but we really did like it. And I have to be honest with you, every time he snapped his hat, it was like, okay, I'm with you. I love that, because that really is such a classic move for all of those movies.
yeah, it is. And the funny thing about it is, there have been remarks about, Delon wearing that raincoat, and snapping the collar and the hat thing. And they said, not to mention that there were probably 500 men in France at any given moment dressed the same way.
Yeah.
Uh, but he also became a model for that. I mean, it was just, and if you remember, Bogey used to wear a raincoat. I mean, it's all, Melville takes all of these things, but he enhances them with the silence. No dialogue. You don't need dialogue. You just have to watch him. I mean, when he goes out and he steals the car, and he doesn't just steal any car. He steals a Citroen. And if you remember, when he first starts to drive, he passes a woman in another car who's staring at him, and he just turns and looks at her, and then he just keeps going.
You
She
know,
sort of raises her chin. Yeah,
One
what?
thing that we really pay attention to, probably because of Larry's background, were the cars in the movie, which were terrific.
Yeah,
Interesting that he only stole Citrons. And I loved
yes.
how he sat there with the keys, like taking a deep breath and calming himself. But Larry noticed this, I did not, how often the white Camaro was in the scenes. And I came up with probably something that's totally whacked out. I said, maybe that was actually the guy that was after him in the long run, because when I thought about it and really went back through the scenes, that white Camaro was in a lot of scenes, and it didn't really fit into the lineup of cars.
Well, and it would have been tough too because it had to been like one of the very first ones made, and it was already in France.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, and that's Melville. It's the idea that somebody, and it could have been the club owner, that somebody with money would want a car like that to show off. It becomes a symbol more than anything else. And it's Melville's symbol. It's his nod to American film almost by putting the car in there, by putting an American car in the scene. He was that kind of iconoclast. I mean, he would do things like that in his films. His films are very sharp, very sharp. Uh, Anybody else out there? Yeah, Phyllis.
Okay, so I have a couple of comments and a lot of questions about this. One is I noticed that, the trademark with the hat thing. So Jean-Paul Belmondo would go with his thumb. So Breathless came out first. That was in
Yeah.
1960, and he might have gotten that idea from that film. Let's see. Okay, so the mise en scène, it would look very artificial. The walls of the
Mhm.
room were almost like painted gray. It was just, and I guess he had a reason for doing that,
Yes.
um, which
He
was
was looking, he was looking, he was looking, he wanted to create a monochromatic look. It's filmed in color, but he drained it purposely. He wanted to just bring it down to the barest minimum of color. And also using that drab room is where are we? It leans towards this whole existential nature of the character. What is he? Is he in his own hell? Is he in his own? What is this place? At that point in time, also Beckett, Samuel Beckett's plays and his novels were very big. They were in France. In France, they were very big. And when you look at Delon, when you first see him, his eyes are lit. In lying in the bed, his eyes are lit. And they were saying it's very much like Beckett's Endgame, where you see only eyes. It's that whole coming in, are we going into this man's soul, so to speak? He really sets everything up. I mean, it was what's his name? John Woo, the director, said he couldn't think of a more perfect film in terms of how he controlled every shot. Especially that room. It also has to do. There was some allusions in there, which when I was reading it, go back to the resistance, go back to the war, especially the way the police treat him. That kind of thing was, it goes back to the Gestapo. It goes back to everything that was happening during the war. And the caged bird also is the idea of a man putting a woman in a cage. These are all illusions that Melville and other and the Cahiers de Cinema critics were putting into the film. And he didn't argue with them. He said there's a lot of philosophy in the film. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I didn't quite get the bird with the feathers. But he just the bird was agitated, so he lost
Yeah,
his
he
feathers,
knew he knew
seeing somebody in
something
the
was
room.
wrong. He knew
Uh-huh.
because when they came in, the bird was there, and then they left and
Right.
they put that thing up, and so he wasn't there. And he comes in and he sees the bird feathers on the bottom of the cage. That was his alarm system. He knew
Okay.
somebody must have been in the room.
All right. And then why did he wear white gloves in the last scene? I mean, he made himself so obvious. And
Yeah.
obviously, also in the context of the lineup and the bringing in the suspects, you would think someone who didn't want to get caught would not wear the same outfit that they wore to commit the crime. And he's standing there. There's a sea of dark coats, and there he is in his trench coat. There was one other guy with a light colored trench coat and his
Right.
hat. So I think that he lived life on his own terms,
Mhm.
wherever it took him. And he wasn't giving in to anything like that. And probably life was meaningless, so why bother trying to run from your fate?
Well,
Um,
it was his last act. Yeah, it was his last
yeah.
act. He's done. Well,
And so why was he told to kill the singer? Was he?
Oh, because
Was
she was
it?
a witness. She
I
was a
mean,
witness.
but I
Yeah,
thought he didn't do that himself. He got another assignment, right, from his boss.
yeah. He got another assignment from his boss, but it was they were setting him up. I mean, when the guy comes to the apartment and he's holding the gun on him,
Yeah.
he wants to kill him, and he was coming from the same guy. So they wanted to kill him. They felt that the whole thing was botched at the beginning, and they wanted to kill him. And instead of paying him off. And so now he gets the gun from this guy, ties him up in his room. And the fact that he left him there that way, he wasn't coming back for him. He was going to go out there. He was going to do his thing. And I think he knew when he saw her, and he saw it for the last time. Also, there was a betrayal. He realized she lived with him, with the guy that commissioned him, the guy that contracted him. So he
Oh,
felt a certain betrayal. He's again the femme fatale. And she had second thoughts as well. But when she saw him walk into the club, she said, I know he's here to kill me. She was resigned to die. I mean, she thought he's going to kill me. And he purposely didn't load the gun. I mean, I love that. And with
yeah,
the whole white gloves, it's the whole thing. It's this whole,
yeah.
he was the knight, the Bushido knight.
Thank
It was,
you.
yeah, it really, really kept him in character throughout the whole thing. He stays in character, but his character is alone. He has no friends, and there is a hint of what's going to happen. There is one foreshadowing when the guy who gives him the plates and the mechanic, and he says to him, "This is my last job." Remember, he says to Alain Delon, "This is my last job. I'm done after this." So in
Mhm.
essence, his world was beginning to crumble. He had no one to depend on anymore. He depended on very few people, and this was it. This was it.
Mhm.
Interesting.
I-
You go back and I've watched this film so many times. This is a film you can break down frame by frame and sit and discuss it, just the way you did with The Room. Looking at The Room, look at the apartment house. I mean, it's all, and the window. It was all artifice. It was all artifice, what we see. It was very interesting. And he creates
yeah.
an atmosphere with it. Yeah, he created an atmosphere with it. Sandra?
I enjoyed watching the film, but the story was less important to me in a sense is from the beginning. I understand film noir. I knew what it was sort of going to be like, but it's clearly the kind of film that filmmakers have watched and pulled apart in terms of technique. Because if you all remember, the first film I really remember that was silent for 10 minutes was E.T.
Mm-hmm.
And that came well after this. And you had to know that everybody who worked on that film knew that that was going to work. And it was certainly not a film noir film. And the camera work also, when they hone in the beginning on the birdcage, and it's larger than it should be, you know and you began to look at every symbol as a symbol, and the words became secondary to the music because the
Mm-hmm.
music told the story. And the next film I thought about, where I know that that was true, was, you're going to laugh, Chainsaw Massacre. If you saw that film, which is a black and white film, which is not film noir, that was one of the scariest films at the time made, the sound, the music drove the film, and it
Mm-hmm.
made the film scary, and it produced all of the emotions, and it requires an acting skill that this film really capitalized on. The acting was looked easy and minimalist, but it was totally controlled. And I just think that this is a film that people are going to watch forever to become filmmakers,
Yes.
because so much of it tuned into what a film is all about and how to break it up in your own style.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they cited that Hitchcock looked at his films as well. I mean, he looked at Hitchcock's films, and Hitchcock looked at his films. They traded off on one another, and you could see it. Melville was alluding, or he did allude in conversation to Vertigo, in the way, and Vertigo is very silent. When you watch it, there are a tremendous amount of silence in the film when Jimmy Stewart is following Kim Novak, when the scenes in the museum, which later on Brian De Palma used that in his film, the one with Andrew Dickinson. There are so many directors that borrowed. They call it homage. It's actually stealing, but it doesn't matter. It's you enjoy seeing it. But Melville was the cornerstone. I mean, he just, and you're right. There's no real story here. There's no plot. It's just following him. It's just following him, and the essence of what he does, and who is he? It's amazing. We're following a guy that has no friends. He has, the one thing he does is he goes to his mistress and says, "I was here." And that's it. He doesn't want to know from anything, and that's the end of it. So you figure, okay, why am I watching this guy? And you get absorbed. It is the music. It is the music. It's the jazz. It's the whole idea. It's the atmosphere. To me, it's the atmosphere. He creates an atmosphere that just is so interesting to partake in. It really is. Okay. Oh, Marilyn, you gotta unmute, Marilyn. There you go.
Yeah, I would use the word hypnotic. And I found that it's the first movie that I've ever totally been transfixed. I could not move. And I think because it's what was not said and what you had to think through and work at, I thought it was brilliant. So, yeah.
I mean,
selection.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of, just as Sandra said, this is the kind of filmmaking that film students look at, and that film teachers would instruct them to look at. I mean, the structure, mise en scène, how he sets the stage at the beginning. I mean, it's like looking at a Hopper painting. There's a story in there. There's a story. You'd stare into the frame because you're staring into the story. Right. Who is this man? It's a man of mystery.
Exactly. That's a wonderful description, because Hopper does exactly that. It's what he doesn't say, and you therefore have to fill in yourself. So it was the rhythm of that movie, which I thought was brilliant.
Terrific. I mean, I love exposing this film to people who've never seen it. I mean, it's been around long enough, but nobody's ever, and they destroyed it when they first distributed it in the States. I saw it as The Godson, and I said, this is a piece of crap. I don't know what they did to this thing. It's dubbed. They cut it up. I mean, they literally destroyed it, and it was 5 years after he made it. And then when DVD came along and film schools were becoming prominent, they managed to get the French versions of it, and that's what changed the way we looked at the film. So it really it went through an interesting genesis. But thank you. Who else? Nancy, you have something else?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Did the bird change color? Didn't the bird become more gray toward the end? The bird, it looked like a female bird in the beginning.
It probably was.
There was a red belly, and then at the end, it was almost as if it was a different bird.
Well, it could have been.
Gray.
I mean, considering that it took them months to shoot the film, I mean, it could have been. But remember the original bird probably died. They needed another bird, and then another bird. But yeah,
he wouldn't have. No, that's too big of a detail. That bird's too important to switch out the bird. you can find birds or anywhere, but it
Well, you had to
seemed
make the
to me
bird
that,
nervous in
that
order to
the
shed.
bird was disturbed by having company. And
Right.
I didn't know anything about birds changing color with their environment, or like lizards. I thought it was interesting because I noticed it. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, well,
oh,
it could be. I mean, it's also angles. It's also, sometimes in its angles when you're shooting monochromatically, sometimes color shows up, sometimes it doesn't. You're trying to bleed the frame,
hmm
and use everything gray. Paint the walls gray, you
right,
paint
the
everything
green,
a
the green.
certain color to lessen the color within the film. It's within the film stock itself. These are all techniques that they use to create it. I mean, it's a very artistic approach to filmmaking.
Oh,
Is what it is. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? Nobody else? Yes, Sandra.
There I go. So, two things. I kind of thought the bird was like the smoking gun. I thought that bird's going to mean something in the film, which it
The
did.
Chekhov bird. Yes.
Yeah. And the second thing, when he gets up and he puts on the coat and the hat, there was almost a comic element to the way he was. I don't know why, but I said to my husband, "This is funny. This is
Well, it's funny because of time. It's funny
yeah,
because of time and the way you look at film.
yeah,
When you first see it, you look at him and it's this, who is he? It's this cool thing he's doing. It's his, as Phyllis said, for Belmondo, it was going like this.
yeah,
Bogart was the same way. Bogart
yeah,
used to go like this, if you
yeah."
remember. And when they asked him why he did it, he said because he had an ulcer and he had to take so much jelly cell or something that it made his lips white. So he'd always go like this. It's look, there are so many stories you hear about films and you hear about actors discussing scenes and why they acted in a certain scene. I could tell you a dozen of them right now, but
Yeah.
that detracts from this film. But it is something and it's something that Delon did. This is not something that Melville said is in the script. Delon worked very hard with Melville to develop the character, and he
Yeah.
developed that whole idea. And Phyllis, you might be right. He picked up. Listen, I'm gonna one up Belmondo on this one. Is essentially what he's doing.
But
Interesting.
he walks down the street. There's nobody dressed like him. Like there's nobody else, only him. He stands out like a sore thumb. He stands out in the lineup. It was an interesting element. I thought, like, why is he doing that? He doesn't want to
It's
get caught, but
but he, as you say, he stands out, but nobody seems to notice him. It's when he's walking in the
yeah,
street, when he's walking through the subway. It's all. He is who he is. He's this
yeah.
this. Nobody wants to look at him, especially maybe the way he looks.
Anyways, good film. Thank you.
Good, good. My pleasure. Anybody else out there? I mean, they'd like to add? Nobody. Wow. Okay, Nancy, come on
sorry, I'm
back.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No, that's
monopolize this
okay.
whole thing. All right, so can you suggest other films that are similar thematically that we may want to take
Yeah,
in
I
this
mean,
time of high film?
I would suggest, well, one of the great films, and they look at it now as a kind of masterpiece, is the film Heat with Al Pacino
Okay.
and Robert De Niro. It's also a cop, and it's about a cop and a mobster,
hmm
a robber, a thief. The film Thief with Jimmy Caan. That's another one. That's all about atmosphere. It's all about watching the character build. Little dialogue, not much action, not much action. Just a lot of repetitive moves. Because that's the way the character is. Repetitive. It's
hmm
very important. It's very important in this film that Jef Costello and they give him an American name. He doesn't have a French name, if you notice. He's got an American gangster name, Jef Costello. It's just following him, his moves. He repeats himself. The way he steals a car, the way he does, the way he counts his money, the way he smokes a cigarette. It's all the way he takes care of his arm. So everything is calculated on his part. Is basically what's happening here. He's not an automaton. He's just a man of habit. He's a man of habit. He's a creature of habit that he's developed. He's an iconoclastic character. Is basically what he is. But if you see films like Heat, Thief, and go back over some of the French films of the 50s and 60s with what's his name? The French actor Jean Gabin. Jean Gabin made a number of films. In fact, he made one or two with Alain Delon. Stranger in Town, I think it was. There's another great film called Two Men in Town, or The Man on the Train. The Man on the Train. Jean Rochefort and Johnny Hallyday, who was a rock star in France. And it's the same kind of film. Not much dialogue, but it's about a gangster that comes into town for his last big hit and winds up, has no place to stay. The hotel's closed, and meets a man in the street, played by Jean Rochefort, was a private school teacher. Takes him in, and becomes a switch in character along the way. Rochefort is mystified by this guy and wants to be him. And Johnny Hallyday starts to become the teacher, smokes his pipe, puts on his slippers. I mean, you see the wanting to get away from who they are and embody somebody else. Very interesting film. Very interesting film. But these are the kinds of films that follow Melville, that follow noir, or neo-noir, as they call it now.
Did Melville do more of these
Oh,
similar
sure.
films?
He only did about 10 films, 10 or 14 films. He didn't do many films. He died young. I think he was in his 50s. This is his masterpiece. He did a film. His first film was based on World War II. Also very silent, about a Nazi who inhabits a house, takes over a house, during the occupation, and the couple don't want him there, and it becomes a war of nerves, but also very quiet, very interesting.
Cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Nothing? Nobody? Okay, well, let me take you. The next film is a complete departure from this one. We go to the other extreme. We go to comedy, and I mean comedy. We're going to see the the key of life. It's a wonderful story. Just what I was talking to you, Nancy, about. It's about it's screwball. It's farce. It's slapstick. It has everything. It has every kind of comedy, and it's about mistaken identity. It's about assuming identities, and all I will tell you, it all turns on a bar of soap. And when you see it, you'll know what I mean, because I'm not telling you anymore. This is a film you have to experience. And I'll tell you more about the director, more about the inspiration for it when we see each other again, because it's just a delightful film. I'll be surprised if somebody tells me they didn't laugh at this one. It's just a terrific movie. Key of Life, Japanese, and it refreshes the whole genre of I don't know what it is. It's its own genre, this film. But it is some terrific acting, terrific characters, terrific detail. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do every time I see it. So I'll look forward to Seeing
on
you
the
for yeah,
19th, on the
right
19th.
on the 19th, 2 weeks. Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you then, and we'll have a good laugh. Hopefully, it's a great distraction from the world out there. That's much I'll tell you. Yeah, Bobby, you gotta unmute.
Okay. I have
There
a
you go.
question.
Sure.
The first time I saw this movie, I fell asleep in my chair. Not because of the movie, but because
Right.
it had been a crazy. Okay. I woke up and the movie was over, and the next one was playing was something, I think it was called Hello Rio or something.
The
And
Man from Rio?
no, it was a story. And I need to ask you this. When I read about it, I guess there were a few of these movies with a crazy agent, and it was supposed to be like the French version of James Bond
That was
movies,
Jean-Paul Belmondo. That was Jean-Paul Belmondo.
where whoever it was, I will tell you, the movie, when I turned on, he was talking, it was the most anti-Semitic ramp
Really?
that I'd ever heard. He had just been whatever he was talking to the Israeli agent, so I don't think he realized it was Israeli. We didn't realize they were Israeli, and talking about he was going to be meeting with these Jewish agents. So he said, "Oh boy, big noses and big what?" I mean, it was horrible, on and on. And I went to look it up, and of course, in all the reviews of it, they didn't mention anything about this. I was just amazed at what the heck I was looking at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, do you
Hey,
know?
well, there was a film called That Man from Rio, and he plays he he he's basically a private on a military leave who comes to the rescue of his girlfriend. Is that the one you're talking
No,
about?
no,
He's
no.
looking for a girl.
There was a series of movies. He's a crazy agent for something, and he goes all over the
Oh,
world.
wait
I
a
mean,
minute.
it's a series. I mean, they made that movie, and then they made about 5 or 6 others. Like they did the James Bond movie. You know,
Yeah.
and I should have written down the name, but I'll find it. I'll find it again. I was like, I can't tell you the name.
OSS Rio.
It could
It's
be.
OSS 117 Rio,
It could be something like that.
and they're
Yeah.
looking for Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a recent film.
No, that's
Well,
not the
not
one then.
recent, from 2009,
I
but
think,
it's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it stars Jean Dujardin from The Artist. He played that. It is a silly riff on James Bond. It was a silly riff on James Bond. It was.
Okay.
Yeah. They were very popular in France. Uh,
Okay.
okay. Betty, you fell asleep on that one and woke up for the Samurai.
Yeah, you're
Anyway,
right. I would have been happier. So I watched it again. Oh,
okay.
wait.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess that's it. Unless anybody has anything they want to add. If not, I wish you a good 2 weeks. Stay safe, stay warm. Well, you don't have to worry about staying warm.